E190.
Yeah guys, we have the evidence that Russians definitely shut down this airplane. We're speaking about this Azerbaijan Airlines Embraer E190, which was on its flight from Baku, Azerbaijan to Grozny, Chechnya, Russia. Here we have the information about this aircraft, so it's 6:28 UTC. Today, this aircraft crashed in Aktau, Kazakhstan. Later, I'm gonna tell you why it happened in Kazakhstan, because the flight was conducted between Azerbaijan and Russia. The airplane was 11 years old, there were 67 of the occupants, and some of them survived actually. The Ministry of Emergency said that there were 29 of the survivors, but I heard different numbers like 32 already, so luckily someone survived. The flight took off from Baku International Airport. By the way, I've flown there many times, and was heading to Grozny. Russian initial information suggests that the flight was unable to land at Grozny due to low visibility at 0502. 3,500 meters, but this visibility is actually good, and the cloud base is also great for any sort of the approach. Reportedly, flight diverted to Makhachkala, but the visibility there was also, I would say, good for even non-precision approach. Later on, ADS-B data, so the data connected to the GPS service at 0607 UTC, showed the flight over the Caspian Sea with a squawk 7700. So something happened before with the airplane. It declared an emergency. And the aircraft was heading towards the Aktau Airport, which is located at the shore of the Caspian Sea, Kazakhstan. Well, we might have more data from the Aviation Herald website. They confirm most of the information, and they say that 32 of the people were rescued alive. 28 of those were taken to the hospitals and 7 to intensive care. Here we have the weather information of Grozny Airport. Definitely 3,500 kilometers of visibility, which is not the fog, it is broom. And the cloud base, I would say, okay, 1,200 meters. If we check the minimums for Grozny Airport, and I guess that Embraer is category Charlie of the aircraft, but even if we take Delta, you see that the GLS approach, or NAV approach, NDB approach, all of that within the minimum, especially for runway 26 equipped with ILS, which is Cat 1 category, so array altitude 200 feet, the borough altitude 739 feet. The runway visual range is 550, but even without the flight director system or head-up display, they might take this range. And the minimum here is 2 times lower than actually was by the time of the approach. So the weather minimum for diversion from Grozny Airport wasn't the factor. And by the way, the wind was also calm by the time of the approach. Yes, as you can see in Aktau, the weather was a little bare. And here we are live on the flight radar 24. Here you can see Baku, the capital city of Azerbaijan, and Grozny, the capital city of Chechen Republic of Russia, is not that far away. And here we have the data published by the flight radar 24 on Twitter. The plane flown from Baku, and near Makhachkala the GPS signal was lost, and again it occurred over the Caspian Sea, not far away from the Kazakh territory. So why don't we have the data over the Russian airspace? Well, because Russia jammed GPS. And the reason for that is the Russian war against Ukraine. Basically, they used the Caspian Sea as the launching spot for their Tupolev 95 strategic bombers. So this morning, by the time of the flight, Russia again launched their attack on Ukrainian territory, hitting Ukrainian infrastructure. And those are the cruise missiles which flown to Ukraine from the Caspian Sea. Russia usually uses their Tupolev 95 strategic bombers for those terror missions. So they basically jammed the GPS signal over the northern part of the Caspian Sea. Plus, one more reason for Russia to jam the signal was the Ukrainian attack on Chechen Republic and Grozny. Again, Russia having closed their airspace over Grozny, they allowed the commercial traffic to operate by the time of the strike. This video was filmed today in Chechnya. This is the Ukrainian drone Airprak-22 Foxbat. Originally, it is the ultralight aircraft which was converted for the drone purposes. It is basically a kamikaze drone now with a range up to 1,100 kilometers, so pilots were removed and additional fuel tanks were put to hit the Russian infrastructure. And you know, guys, Ukraine has absolute right to do so, I mean to hit the Russian military infrastructure. It is not the first time those drones are spotted in Grozny. Before, like 1 week ago, one of the drones hit the barracks of the Akhmat battalion, which fights in Ukraine against Ukrainians. And you know, Russia started its war and they attack Ukraine using strategic bombers, so Ukraine has at least something to respond with. And this photo was also taken today in Grozny. This is the acceleration module of the air defense missile, which Russia uses on their Panzer S systems. This is short up to middle range system, and they have those kind of the missiles to hit helicopters, and it is quite useful against the drones. Also, this module has 2 of the cannons. And here we have the images from the crash site, Embraer airplane itself, with numerous of the holes, basically shrapnel in the aft part of the airplane, vertical stabilizer, horizontal stabilizer, all of that is shrapnel. And you may see that it's not the explosion holes, it's implosion. So you may see here, the part of the skin of those holes just curved inside. So 100% it was the external factor, so the missile which caused that damage. And this is one more video filmed from the different distance perspective. You may see numerous holes with the shrapnel everywhere. And it's not the first time Russia shuts down the airplanes. There was the evidence provided that definitely Russia shut down MH17 Boeing 777 over Ukraine back in 2014. By that time, Russia used more heavier system Buk with a larger missile. That's why the missile was enough to shut down the airplane. So as you can see, missile just releases the shrapnel very close to the aircraft, causing the damage. That's how the air defense missiles usually work. They don't need to hit the target itself. They need to explode nearby. But because the missile of the Panzer S is much smaller, it caused just this limited damage. So the airplane got damages, pilots declared an emergency and started to divert. But why did they divert to Aktau and not coming back to Baku? Well, first of all, the route to Aktau is closer, and to go back to Baku they need to curve away from the mountains. And judging on the flight radar 24 data and bar information which came from the altimeters, it was really difficult to control the airplane. There were numerous fluctuations of the vertical speed with minus 8,300 to plus 8,300 feet per minute. It happened more than 100 times, so you can see up and down, so the airplane basically lost the control. Why do we have this precise value? Well, basically there is no data coming if the vertical speed is above or below this value, I guess, from the system itself. So the real figure could be even bigger, I guess. So why did this airplane lose the control? Embraer E190 has 3 of the hydraulic systems. The logic is that hydraulic pistons activate airfoils, depends on the signals coming from the flight computer, so it's the standard scheme for the fly-by-wire airplane. The weak spot of it that in case you lose all of the hydraulic fluid, you have nothing to control your airfoil with, as well as if you lose the signal which is coming from the flight control system. On Boeing 737, which I've flown before, the scheme is different. There, if you lose all of the hydraulics, you can still control the airplane with manual reversion. Yes, it's much harder to manipulate the airplane, but still it is possible and you can control it. But in this case, unfortunately, it's not possible at all if you have the leak in hydraulic system in all of the systems basically. And the damage to the flight control system here was caused by external factor, by missile. So either it caused a leak or cut the signal from flight control computer. Here I was able to find this video on TikTok. It shows the final moments of the airplane from the close perspective. Well, what we may see here that it seems like the flaps are not extended, but landing gear was, so pilots tried to land this airplane in Aktau. But actually you can extend the landing gear on Embraer without any hydraulic system required. There is the manual extension handle which pilots used in this case. Let's watch how it's done.
To extend the LDG with the manual system, the LDG selector must be selected to down. Pull the manual lever up to an angle of 62 degrees. This will rotate the forward quadrant and via the closed loop cable, the main landing gear quadrant as well. The free fall selector valve is moved by the rod from the main landing gear quadrant and connects all hydraulic lines to return. The uplock hooks in all uplock boxes are mechanically forced to open by the cables. The landing gears are released from their uplock and extend by gravity and aerodynamic forces.
So yeah, as you saw, you have the direct linkage between the locks and this manual lever, manual handle, which helps to extend the landing gear even with no hydraulic system. Landing gear just goes down with its own weight and aerodynamic forces, as they say, like nose gear extends over here, being pushed by the airflow. So here we have this exact configuration. Flaps are up, landing gear is down. Really shows that something is wrong with hydraulic system or flight control system of the airplane. Here in a screenshot we can see how airplane just plunged into the ground, hitting mostly the forward part of it. So the passengers who were sitting in the back survived. All of the pilots lost their lives. Luckily they saved some of the passengers. So I think they did what they could in this situation. The only way to control this airplane was with manipulating of the engine power. The story reminds of United Flight 242, then because of the internal explosion the damage was caused to a hydraulic system, so crew had to manipulate with 2 of the remaining engines to land the airplane. Unfortunately they crashed, but many of the passengers were saved. 112 passengers lost their lives and 184 survived. And you know guys, in my aviation career on a flight simulator I tried to land Boeing 737 manipulating just with the thrust difference. It is damn hard to do. So the outcome that some of the passengers stayed alive is actually good. And you see here that the off part of the fuselage definitely survived the crash, and that's why some of the people were saved. The fire and rescue team also was in place on time because they received the emergency signal from the airplane. Well, at least they saw the emergency squawk 7700, which we also saw on flight radar 24. So they deployed Mi-8 rescue helicopter and many of the vehicles. It happened really not far away from Aktau Airport, like 5 kilometers away, and that saved many lives of the passengers. But the front part of the airplane and the wing is completely gone. So that's approximate position of the crash. Here you can see that the runway is not that far away, but probably pilots decided to land in an open area field with a relatively flat ground, as you can see, to have more options, because it was definitely hard to aim the airplane just with the engine thrust. And I'm here in a flight radar 24 myself. I found this flight. You can see that there is definitely the altitude change throughout this final stage of the flight. It was difficult to control the airplane with heading as well. So finally they tried to aim towards the runway. Finally they made the go around here because they were not in the line with runway, so at least they had one attempt. Here they tried to turn left and right, barely controlling the airplane at the very low altitude. And unfortunately here probably it was too much thrust on one of the engines, because we don't usually go through those kind of the simulations on our full flight simulators. This type of the emergency known very rare to occur, almost impossible, but I already mentioned you the case which happened before, so I think it should be trained on the flight simulators after all. Here unfortunately they didn't have enough altitude to recover and they hit the ground. Luckily those were not the mountains in this area, the ground was definitely flat, and that also saved the lives of the people. So after all, I think that pilots did a proper choice to go to Aktau, Kazakhstan, because this area is not that populated as Baku. If they had returned back to their origin, you may see that it is huge residential area, so they 100% would hit something in attempt to land. So pilots did actually great job. Yes, they lost their lives, but they tried their best to save people inside of their airplane as well as on the ground. And I'm sure all of this data will be confirmed by the flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder, which by the way survived. By the way guys, I also have my mate flying the exact same aircraft in exact same airline, but honestly I will not ask him for any side of the insights because it's their own policy, the policy of the airline. So what we need to do is just to wait for official information, which I think will confirm the impact of missile. And there is one more video released, so there was also the damage to the flap hydraulic actuator fairing. So maybe shrapnel hit not just the aft part of the airplane but also the wing, and there could be many more spots of the possible hydraulic hydraulic leak. And on this particular video, I already see many more of the oxygen masks, so for sure there was the depressurization. Depressurization might be caused by two of the factors. First of all, you lost the engine bleed, so the air is not coming to the compartment of the airplane, cabin and cockpit to pressurize your airplane, and in this case the pressure inside would be lost gradually. It's not the fast process, so pilots would have enough time to descend to the safe altitude. But if you have the outside damage, it might cause even explosives decompression. The pressure inside the cabin would be equal to the outside pressure. Well, it really depends on the hole itself, whether it's big or small. In this case, I don't know, but definitely it was caused by external factor, as we see from the shrapnel. There are some videos filmed by the passengers, so passengers were sitting wearing the oxygen masks. And those who survived this accident, who were sitting on the back, they said in the report about the loud bang, and after it, yes, this happened. Here we have the very close perspective of the shrapnel. I check it on Astra channel. It's the Russian opposition source, by the way. And for sure, 100% those holes were done only by the air defense missile. It's explosion. It's not the internal kaboom as it was reported by the first time, and it's not the bird strike. 100% this air crash was caused by the Russian air defense. I hope that they will admit it very soon. And it's actually very terrible that those things happen. And luckily this airplane landed in Kazakhstan, not in Russia, so there will be international investigation conducted of this really terror act done by Russia. Why didn't they close the airfield if they had the drone attacks? So yes, you can see that the shrapnel went from one side, and this is the exit hole. You can see it everywhere here. It's not like some sort of the air tank, as it was reported, exploded there. No, there is nothing like that in the aft part of the airplane, which might cause that significant damage. No, I'm 100% sure that this aircraft was shot down by the Russian military, and the original reason for this is because Russia started the war against Ukraine. It is their full responsibility. Now they might blame Ukraine for launching the drone strike on Grozny, but Russia is responsible to provide safety of the air operations on its own territory. Like, by the way, I also think that Ukraine should have provided its own safety in its own airspace over Donbass by the time Russia hit MH17. So I think it was also a mistake by Ukraine not to close the airspace over Donbass. But again, it was the Russian missile Buk which hit Malaysian Boeing. And you know, guys, that the similar stuff happened with my airline Boeing 737, which was shut down by Iranian militants, so even me could be on board of this airplane. And we say that those cases with military shutting down civilian airplanes by mistake or not appear again and again, so something should be done with it. But you know, after all, it's hard to influence those dictator regimes in Russia or Iran. The only thing I would recommend is not to visit those countries, because it's kind of dangerous even if you fly over them. So guys, I'm gonna keep you updated on the story. I'm waiting for the initial report about this case, but I'm sure that everything that I've said to you in this video is true. So yes, obviously before the official investigation report, it's the speculation from my side, but I'm 100% sure in my outcome, my conclusions. I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.